everybody, and welcome back to Tavian's World of Reptiles. If this is your first time coming to my channel, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Please check out some of my other content. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, ding that bell, so you get notified when I put out future content. If you are a returning subscriber, you rock. Thank you so much for returning to watch another one of my videos. So, with New Year's comes a lot of big changes for people, big and small, and all sorts of varying changes for people. People are getting older, children are getting older, getting more responsible, and so today I decided to make this video gearing specifically towards more parents or youth who are thinking about getting into reptiles and wanting one or something like that. Now, this video is going to be focusing on some do's and some don'ts to think about and other various things to just think about when it comes to getting your kids the very first reptile or animal in general. I say reptile because my channel is specifically about reptiles, so I'll be focusing more on that. So I hope this video helps out somebody out there who's thinking about getting a pet for their kid, because there are many things to think about, and I think it was really important to go ahead and get this video out right at the beginning of the year for those of you who are looking at your aging children and thinking it's about that time to get them a pet. So one thing I think it's important to never ever do when it comes to getting your kids a pet is get them something they are not interested in, because obviously you may force this animal on them thinking you want to give them more responsibility, but if they actually don't have any draw towards the animal, the chances are they're going to quickly get over it and not want to take care of it way quicker than they probably would otherwise. And the fact of the matter is, children get bored quickly, and even if you get them something that they are really interested in, the chances of them getting bored with it are still up there. But if you get them something that they're interested in, then they are more likely to actually stay invested in that animal a lot longer than getting them something that they don't really care about. Next thing I think is super important to remember about getting your kid's pet is never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, get your kids a pet on an impulse. Like if you're going off to the store to get some fish food or cat food or dog food or something from some animal that you might already have, and you go in and your kid sees this really cool snake or little reptile, little green lizard or whatever the case may be, and decides, I want it, I want it, I want it. Do not ever just decide, well, okay, kiddo, you got it. Because what you've done is, first, you've already made it possible for that first thing to happen a lot quicker, because even if they see this animal, they could be thinking right there in that moment that this animal is cool, but then a couple hours later, just not even be interested. And you spent money on this animal and probably all the stuff that goes involved with that animal, enclosure and substrate and food and all of that, and then quickly they're over it. So definitely never do an impulse buy, because not just that, but also what you do is you set yourself up to shifting into the third thing, which is I was going to say never do, and that is never get an animal without doing 100% proper research. Research is so very important when getting an animal, and impulse buys do not allow you to do that. Most reptile stores or any store usually will come with those stupid little care sheets, and those are probably the worst things ever that you could actually use as your source of care information, because 99% of the time they are all very wrong, and you're going to end up with a very sick and very dead animal very shortly afterwards if you follow those care sheets. So it's important when you are deciding to get your kids an animal, impulse buy, no. You must go home, you must do massive amounts of research. And I don't mean just you, I mean you and your child. Your child 100% has to be invested in the research and wanting to do the research and learn everything about that snake, not just its husbandry care, but as well as kind of where they come from in the wild and stuff like that, so they can really learn to appreciate the species that they found themselves getting or wanting to get. And if your child is not willing to do any of that research, then they are not at all ready for a reptile or any animal for that matter. Now that has all been said and done, if you have decided, oh, my kid is ready for an animal, they have decided which animal they want, they have done some pretty darn good research, and it looks like they really invested into this animal, and you're thinking they are ready. That's perfect. I'm so glad that they have done all those things. I'm glad that they've done the research. They've really looked into the animal that they're wanting. I'm glad that you walked them through those steps properly. I'm glad you didn't do anything impulsively. That's all wonderful. Now, this next little message is just for you, the parent, because as I said, children get bored quickly. quickly. And even though they've done all this massive research, even though they've done everything right, and they know everything about this animal, how to care for it, all of that, the fact of the matter is they are still kids, and life is changing for them every single day. So the older they get, the more interested in things they're going to get. They're not related to their animal, and it has to be something that you remember as a parent, that even though this pet is your children's pet, this pet is more so also your pet. Because if that child grows up and grows uninterested in this animal, it should be your responsibility to want to care for it for the rest of its days yourself, and not ship it off for somebody else to get interested in. That's one of the biggest issues I see on Craigslist and everything else, is people say, I got this animal for my kid a few years back. He no longer takes care of it. She's no longer interested. She's no longer whatever. And now I'm getting rid of it. That is one of the biggest heartbreaking things I've ever seen. Because honestly, if you as the parent, if you're going to get your animal, your kids an animal, you should understand that this animal is also your animal. And you should never get an animal that you're not willing to keep for the duration of its life, even after your kids have grown uninterested in them. So when you are getting your kids a pet, you are honestly getting yourself a pet. So definitely keep that in mind when deciding which animals to get for your kids. If it is not something you yourself actually want to interact in and take over when they grow uninterested in it, or if they grow bored of it, then it's definitely not something you should probably get them until they are really way older and really able to put more time into that animal and decide if they really want to invest that time in years, because reptiles often live several years. And when it comes to kids, the fact of the matter is they get up, they're older, they go off to school sometimes, and sometimes they can't take those animals with them. So are you willing to look after that animal while your kids are in school? If they still want that animal, then are you going to keep on holding on to that animal for them until they get out of school, or what is the case may be? If you're thinking you're just going to end up saying, well, when they get tired of it, we'll just ship it off to somebody else, let somebody else have it, then I suggest you not get an animal for your kids. Because even reptiles, I know they may not have this strong emotions as some things like mammals, but they do recognize people as their keepers. They do learn to have trust in certain environments, and changes for them can be really stressful and really just kind of put them in a bad space. And we don't want to do that to our animals. So especially after years of being kept with one family, to suddenly be uprooted, stuck in somebody else's home with new scents, new people, it can be super scary, and we don't want to put our animals through that. So definitely remember, if you get a pet for your kids, you're getting a pet for yourself. And something else to remember about these animals is that they are living creatures, and like most living creatures, things happen, health can be jeopardized, whatever the case may be, and you'll end up with yourself a snake who may need some vet or medical attention, and it is up to you to make sure that you are capable of getting that for this animal. This is kind of what actually motivated this video. I was on Facebook. There was a young girl who had gotten a snake from a pet store, and it was extremely ill and was not capable of taking it to the vet because they didn't have the funds for it. Now, this is important for you as parents to remember, because like their kids, they don't have the funds, but you do. And if you don't have the funds to take your kid's reptile to the vet when it is needed, then it is absolutely imperative that you do not get that animal. Because if you cannot properly get that animal medical attention when it is needed, then you are not ready for that animal. So just to recap: one, never ever ever get a pet your kids don't want just to make them be responsible. It's not going to work out. They're going to get bored. You're going to have an animal you probably don't want. It's going to end up on Craigslist. Bad things happen. Two, never impulsively buy, for all the same reasons I just said on one. Period. And three, never get an animal without doing massive research, both you and the child that you're getting it for, because they need to be invested in learning about the animal, and if they're not ready. And last but not least, just remember that if you are getting an animal for your kids, you're getting an animal for yourself. So that's all, everybody. You take care. Love yourselves. Love your reptiles. Love your loved ones. And you guys keep spreading those herbs.